This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Step in time. Remembering Disney's matinee movies.
Practically perfect in every way.
Step in time.
Your rear end's on fire, Theodore.
Let's recollect the films we might forget.
It's quit astern, sir.
Join Richard and Sarah and Step in Time.
Hakuna McCrady's. Tricorum satis
Well, they saddled up in Boston, still wet behind the ears, and they made their way across the wild frontier. As they sought their fame and fortune, their legend up and sprang, and they soon became
the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Woohoo! No, you're supposed to go, yeehaw!
Yeah!
That's right. Well, hey everybody, or hey y'all. Welcome to our 4th episode of Step in Time, remembering Disney's matinee movies. We are the podcast that steps back in time to take a fun look at the Disney live-action movies of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But before we continue, please, everyone, say hello to my co-host, my other half, the apple to my dumpling, my husband, Richard.
Well, thank you, my dumpling sweetie wife, Sarah.
Oh.
But we also have 2 more guests here. Everyone, please say hello to Teresa, Delgado, and Steve Glosson from Disney Vault Talk. Hey, you two.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hey, that's my line.
Oh, sorry. I'm Steve.
And I'm Teresa. How it's going?
There you go. It's our furry people. No, we're so glad that you guys can join us because you have been going through the Disney catalog, the Disney animated catalog.
So we are like the polar opposite of you guys. You guys do the animated movies, we'll do the live action movies.
Sort of. You just kind of beat us to it. We just haven't gotten there yet. We're doing everything.
That's true. Yeah, you guys are doing everything, and I always look forward to a Disney Vault Talk.
You know what? You can blame Steven Stanton for all this. Because we told him this is an idea we wanted to do a while ago. He said, "Oh, I so want to do that. Let's do it next week." It's like, okay.
Well, if Governor Tarkin says do it.
Make no mistake. From now on, failure will have consequences.
And so the podcast was born. We
much.
Can't say no to Governor Tarkin.
Guys, one of the things I'm known for when I guest on podcast is just going ahead and saying everything I've got to say. On your other show, Skywalking Through Neverland, you guys recently had your all-time awards, and you were going through like your guilty pleasures, and DuckTales was under guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
You know what?
I disagree with that category placement.
A lot of people did, but you know what? We had our listeners nominate various movies and TV shows, and so those were listener nominated. We didn't pick those.
Well, I'd like to send a message to your listeners. There's nothing to feel guilty about as it pertains to DuckTales.
Well, there can be different implications to guilty pleasures. I think maybe it's like you feel guilty that you're watching them so much because you should be doing something else.
Maybe that's in the case of Frozen, which won.
Yeah.
I think that category needs clarification.
Okay. That's good to know for next time. Although next year I think we're going to have all new categories.
Oh yeah, every year all new categories.
It's going to be crazy.
That's spoken like someone who truly has just done it once.
Hence the term first annual all-time awards.
That's right.
All right, now let's talk about the 40th anniversary of one of my favorite childhood films, the Apple Dumpling Gang. Before Star Wars, there was the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Wow.
Yay.
Now, when did you two first see this film? Steve, let's start with you since you're a touch older than Teresa.
Yes. Richard, I think the way to say it is I'm just a touch younger than you.
So true.
I think so.
Because I realize just how much older than Teresa I am almost weekly on Disney Vault Talk. I first saw this, we must have rented it. My family loved to rent movies. The minute there was such thing as movie rentals, my family loved to rent movies. And so we must have rented this. And it was sold to me in this way. Bill Bixby's in it. And I knew and loved Bill Bixby. And so I'm like, okay, I'll watch this thing.
And why did you know and love Bill Bixby?
Hello.
Yes.
The Incredible Hulk.
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Okay. I just wanted to put that together.
Yeah, he played Dr. David Banner, physician, scientist. He was searching for a way to unlock the incredible strength that dwells in all of us. But yeah, so anyhow, I had to have been, gee whiz, 6, 7 maybe. And I just remember loving it. You know, it was one of those things that we just ate it. We laughed at all the right moments and just thought it was the greatest thing. And I kept expecting him during like the one bar fight to turn into the Incredible Hulk. It never happened. You know.
That would have been the greatest crossover ever.
Right?
Now,
Yeah.
how old do you think you were when you first saw this? Must have been the late 70s.
No, it would have been sometime in the early 80s. So I would have
wow.
I would have been 5, 6, maybe 7 at the oldest.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you are much younger than me.
All right,
He was born in 77, right?
Yeah, I was born 77.
Oh, Richard is? You are.
Yeah,
a bit
wow.
older.
Yeah, Richard, you're the old man on the show.
I am.
are.
I am. I'm the one with all the wisdom. I'm gonna sit on top of the podcasting mountain with my staff and telling all the kids to get off my lawn.
That won't win you any awards.
No. So Teresa, how about you? When did you first see the Apple Dumpling Gang?
To be honest, no idea. Don't remember. I know I've seen it, and I saw it most likely off of Betamax because my grandma recorded everything that was on TV on Betamax. So I know I saw it there. It was around the time that I was watching through a bunch of the older live actions with Darby O'Gill and the Little People, That Darn Cat, The Ugly Dachshund, some of the other ones. So I was probably 5 or 6 years old, so it would have had to have been late 80s, early 90s.
Like you were the same age when you saw it as Steve.
Right.
Sarah, when was the first time you saw this movie?
The first time
Last
I
night.
saw this movie was Friday night.
Now,
So I have a very different take on this, having not seen it as a kid.
Now, there are some people out there who have not seen the Apple Dumpling Gang, which really shocks me.
Okay.
But for those of you who have not seen the Apple Dumpling Gang, let's give a quick synopsis of the film.
Okay. All right. So Disney's Apple Dumpling Gang was directed by Norman Tokar, and he also directed The Happiest Millionaire. It was released July 1st, 1975.
Yep, I was alive.
You were alive.
And it's about a slick gambler named Russell Donovan, played by the Incredible Hulk himself, Bill Bixby, who is duped into taking care of a trio of orphans named Bobby, Cloves, and Celia, who eventually strike gold during the California Gold Rush. Now, I think that is the great setup of this film, and I was amazed about how well this film rolls into action in the first couple of minutes. Now, first, you have Bill Bixby, and he's playing a game of poker with his gambling buddies, and someone comes in and says, hey, I need someone here to pick up this very valuable package tomorrow, and I'll give you $5 down payment right now if you do it.
If you need a haircut, Wendell, my barber shop's closed. If you're looking to sue somebody, my court's open every second Tuesday. If you want the sheriff, I'm playing poker. Deuces bet $1.
No, Judge. It's just that I'm leaving for San Francisco tonight.
San Francisco's loss is Quake City's gain. Leonard?
The trouble is that I'm expecting some valuables on tomorrow's stage, and I can't be here to pick them up.
Me neither.
Oh.
I'm in. What kind of valuables, John?
Well, bless my suspender button. Donovan! I haven't seen you since,
Santa Fe?
Right.
When you sold me the marshal's horse?
Well, now, old friend, maybe I can make it up to you.
2 pairs bets $2.
Like I say, I'm expecting valuables on the stage.
I'm in. Like what?
Oh, things a person wouldn't leave lying around without somebody responsible like yourself to keep an eye on.
I'm out.
If you'll claim them for me, I'll make it worth your while. Besides repaying what I charge you for the marshal's horse.
The mayor raised 5.
It's just till I come back, Donovan.
Will you in or not?
Here's 5 on account if you can use it. It's a deal?
It's a deal. I'm in.
Thanks, Donovan. Thanks.
So right there is the perfect setup because Harry Morgan, who is the barber, he's the lawyer, he's the the sheriff.
He's from MASH.
He sells Verizon telephones on the he does everything for the city. And so he's right there. He's the lawman who this was a binding contract that Bill Bixby had taken the money and used it for his gambling debts. So the next day, Bill Bixby goes I'll just call him, what's his name? Russell. Russell goes and picks up this valuable package, which are 3 kids. Now he's trying to get out of it, but no, he already accepted that $5 down payment.
Right.
So now he's legally obligated to accept these kids. So he can't just walk away. I thought that was a brilliant setup. And for a film like this to have such an ironclad setup, I thought was very, very great writing on their part.
Are you being sarcastic?
Are you?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I was just amazed about how well this film is set up.
Huh.
Were you amazed when you saw it the first time, or amazed now?
No, I didn't. I had no idea when I was a kid. I knew it had Don Knotts and it had Tim Conway, and they were funny looking, so that equaled funny gags. So I was all over that. Honestly, I don't remember Bill Bixby even being in this movie because when I saw it, there was no David Bruce Banner as the Hulk. So to me, he was just another actor.
Oh, okay. So he didn't stick in your head.
No, not at all.
Huh.
So this was this more of a Don Knotts, Tim Conway thing for you?
Oh, it sure was, because all the commercials, the advertising, the marketing, the movie posters, all had Don Knotts and Tim Conway looking all so goofy. And I can recall the commercials being very heavily focused on the two of them. And then seeing the movie, it's like, well, you guys aren't hardly even in the movie.
Well, I like the fact that as it's setting it up, that it sets up Russell Donovan. You know, those aren't his gambling buddies. He's the new guy in town.
Mm-hmm.
He's just kind of passing through on his way to New Orleans, as we say in the South. And he's kind of a shady dude. You know, that's why when what's his face comes in, you know, he pulls his hat down low because he knows the guy. And so obviously they've pulled some jobs before, maybe conned some people, maybe, you know, apparently he owed him money, you know, and so it's just a lot of different things going on there. And you get the idea that this Donovan cat isn't the nicest guy in the world.
The fact that he's all dressed in black, that gives you the sense right there that, okay, he's going to be the shady huckster of the film.
That doesn't mean anything. Wyatt Earp dresses all in black, and he's not shady.
Say what?
Just saying. Just saying. Somebody doesn't watch Tombstone, Richard.
Well, I watch Apple Dumpling Gang, Teresa.
Well, we just passed over probably one of the funniest parts of the entire movie, which is the opening, where they have to stop like every few minutes for Celia to get out to go to the bathroom, and you just watching her run like behind a bush cracked me up.
Mister, I gotta go.
We really, they need to get the child checked out.
I gotta
because
go.
there's something going on with that bladder.
Mister, I gotta go bad.
Oh.
Yeah, I can relate with that very, very well.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that we take a road trip every 30 minutes. I gotta go.
I do not say that.
Yes, she does.
Well,
Yes,
and when
she
you
does.
gotta go,
you gotta go.
that became like our family's favorite line from the movie. When you
Oh,
gotta go.
oh, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and
That's cute.
I love the theme song, and I thought the theme song really sets up the kids. The theme song almost had like a 1970s feel to it, where it told a story.
Well, they saddled up in Boston, still wet behind the ears, and they made their way across the wild frontier. As they sought their fame and fortune, their legend up and sprang, and they soon became the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Well, you might appreciate this, Richard, as someone a child of the 60s and 70s or however old you are. The theme song reminds me of Marshall, Will, and Holly
On a routine expedition.
You know what I'm talking about? You with me there?
Oh yeah,
The Land of the Lost.
Land of the Lost.
You know what's funny? Richard and I both, after we saw the movie, we were both humming I Got a Dream from Tangled. That's what I kept humming after seeing the movie.
Yeah, me too. And it's like, wait a minute, why are we both humming that
Yeah,
song?
it's weird.
And I think that theme song really calls back calls forward.
Right.
Well, they saddled up in Boston, still wet behind the ears.
Oh, 'cause way down deep inside I've got a dream. He's got a dream. He's got
a dream. And they soon became the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Well, I do have a note about the music, actually, especially from that opening where you see the Wells Fargo wagon. I know, Conestoga wagon going across all that beautiful scenery. And I just found it interesting that it was kind of a nice mix of your Western score with all that, 8th and 16th notes going on. And then also you have like the down home instruments from, like the banjo and things. So it was a very interesting mix, but I think it worked great for this movie.
Well, and they do something later on with that. To me, it felt very 70s Disney. Mm-hmm. It has a very 70s Disney feel to it, but they do something with the music later on during the big chase at the end where they're playing that music. They've got the old banjo and everything going, and then the camera would cut and show our heroes galloping behind the fire wagon or whatever, and all of a sudden it would kick in with like trumpets. Almost doing the William Tell Overture. Right. Almost doing, to evoke that sense of the Lone Ranger chasing down the bad guys.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really interesting dichotomy.
Well, Richard, what kind of strikes me with something that you said is that it shocks you that people haven't seen this movie. And I have to honestly ask you, really? Because a lot of people have not seen the live action movies of the 60s and the 70s because they're not really that available unless you go as a part of the Disney Movie Club or you know about them, so you get on iTunes to go and rent one. They're not like really promoted and in your face as like, oh, go take a look at, old school Disney from the 70s.
Yeah, and you do have a point there, but I definitely think this is a generational thing. Older fans like myself, we love this film. We had grown up on this film, and they probably would have or should have shown the film to their kids or even other younger Disney fans, just to say, hey, this is a great film in the Disney archives. You should definitely be watching this. Now, we have a comment from a listener who you can tell had seen the film when she was younger, and this struck nostalgic memories. Now, Denise Power wrote in and said, I haven't seen this film in a long time. When I read you were going to talk about it, I Googled some photos and started cracking up. Amos, played by Tim Conway, and Theo, Don Knotts, don't even have to say a thing. Just their expressions are so dang funny. And yeah, if you do Google the Apple Dumpling Gang and you see their images, you can't help but laugh.
Well, you're talking about two comedic geniuses.
Yeah, oh, very, very.
I mean, like, it's undeniable. Some of the funniest stuff you'll ever see is Tim Conway on the Carol Burnett Show. Easy for me to say. He does the old man.
Oh, hilarious.
Everything he does is just move in slow motion, right down to falling down steps in slow motion. It is some of the most, I belly laugh at Tim Conway. And of course, Don Knotts is just one of the greats of all time. And, with his reactions and his facial features and everything that he'll give, it's just, he's so much more than just Barney Fife, of course. But man, and yes, so they definitely, this was obviously sold as a comedic vehicle for these guys.
Yeah.
And they deliver to me in every scene.
Yeah. And Tim Conway was just starting the Carol Burnett Show at this point. So me as a kid, I didn't really know who he was just yet, but still, he had the goofiest expressions I've ever seen on any actor, and everyone knew Don Knotts from all of his Disney movies, and of course playing Barney Fife. So I was sold right then because my mother had always watched Andy Griffith Show, so I knew exactly who he was, yeah. and you can't not look at Don Knotts and not laugh.
Well, I found it funny because, I'd never seen this movie before. I never really knew what it was about. I knew Don Knotts was in it, and this other guy was in it from seeing the poster and what it was promoted. And so when I actually sat down and watched the film, I was surprised to see kids and Bill Bixby in the movie. I was like, who are these people, and why aren't Tim Conway and Don Knotts in it more?
Well, it kind of harkens back to the way that Disney marketed things in the 70s, and it's even true for animated films. They will highlight whatever they know will get people's attention. And so having kids on the movie poster and something about Wild West probably wouldn't get people to go and see it. the way that having Don Knotts and Tim Conway on it would. And the whole point is to get people into the movie theaters because this was a really tough time for Disney films. They were struggling with their animation and stuff like that. So they needed live action. Disney basically stayed afloat on live action during this time frame until they hit some of their bigger Disney movies of the late 70s and early 80s.
And the movie poster is, well, you would think it'd be funny, but yet here you have Tim Conway and he's hanging Don Knotts.
Yes.
Did you see that? Like,
Yeah.
That's kind of morbid and kind of sickly there.
Well,
Yikes. Wow.
Now let's talk about this title itself, The Apple Dumpling Gang. As a kid, I remembered more to this title, but looking back at it now, it was just a vague reference that they threw out there to the kids. Oh, look, it's these kids who like apple dumplings, so now they're the Apple Dumpling Gang.
What do you think, Theodore? Oh, I don't know about the hash knife thrown in with a bunch of kids. How's that going to look in the history books?
Oh, we wouldn't have to call it hash knife. We could call them the Apple Dumpling Gang.
And let's move on.
That's that moment. Was like, oh, that's why this is called this. But I'm wondering, because we do have the Apple Dumpling Gang rides again, wherein I don't think I've seen it but like once, and I don't think the kids are in it at all.
No, they're not. They're
That's
not
just
at all.
straight up Tim Conway and Don Knotts. Were they considering maybe trying to do something with these kids? Maybe an Escape to Witch Mountain kind of thing?
No, it was one of these things where Don Knotts or Amos and Theodore are trying to go on the straight and narrow, but yet they get bumbled into this robbery, and someone asks what their names are. And I think it's Amos who says, "We are the Apple Dumpling Gang," as a callback to the first film.
What I'm asking is behind the scenes. Was there the idea of if this is successful, we'll have these kids going all kinds of misadventures?
I couldn't find too many notes on the Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again, which came out in 1979, other than just the basic plot outline and the fact that no one else returned except for Don Knotts and Tim Conway, and Harry Morgan did return, although he played a different character. So
was it good or was it a flop?
No, it was horrible.
Oh.
It was a complete flop. It's not any good. Don't do it.
It didn't have anything that the original film had. It didn't have the heart, didn't have the kids, didn't have the storyline, and it just didn't look like it was as fun as the original.
Okay.
And even the commercials for the Apple Dumpling Gang, even though it focused heavily on Don Knotts and Tim Conway, it did have the kids. So as a kid, you wanted to see these kids going out on their adventures, especially the mine car scene.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, the little girl, this was the only acting gig she ever did because I researched them. She didn't do anything else. And the little boy that played Clovis, he actually went on to do quite a bit. But the kid who played Bobby did not do a whole ton either. He maybe did 6 or 7 gigs total. So that could explain some of it. They just didn't catch on. I mean, they moved on from here pretty quick because they were using Haley Mills a lot during the 60s and 70s. And there was a lot of other things going on that they had a lot of kids in movies that were their go-to kids. Right. Including like the kids from Mary Poppins and all of that.
Well, plus it was 4 years later, so the kids would have grown up, so they wouldn't have been the cute kids you remember from the original film. But I'm surprised they didn't pull a Brady Bunch and try to get replacement kids. Enter Cousin Oliver.
Okay.
I was looking stuff up while I was going, watching the movie again. There were some things that came up as I was watching this that I was kind of shouting at my computer screen in between bites of dinner. And Sarah, you actually you're hitting on it in the show notes because there was this part where they're like, "Well, what was her name? Her name was it Dusty?"
Yeah.
Dusty, yes.
They're like,
Susan Clark.
"Well, Dusty could take him, but she's not married." And I was like, "Because she has to be married in order to take care of the kids?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Screw you."
And as soon as she gets married, then she doesn't have the aspirations to continue on with her dad's business, everything she wanted to do.
She can't do the job anymore. She can't do any of that. But can I just say that I absolutely love the scene where she sees the bed and that he bought the bed and she goes and she whoops him up. Like, yes.
Wow. Yeah,
That was
her
funny.
character just flipped.
Donovan!
Yes, you snake oil salesman. Are you coming out here or am I coming in there?
What's the matter? Is there some trouble?
Yes, there's trouble, all right, and you're in it. All I want is a chance to be on my way, unencumbered and unfettered.
That's right. That's all I wanted.
Don't slick talk me, you four-flusher!
Wow. Yeah,
That was
her
funny.
character just flipped.
Yeah.
I mean, thematically and literally, because she doesn't even ask him why you bought the bed.
Oh, no.
I
Well, she
wouldn't
just
either. I'd be like,
assumes.
what is wrong with you?
Well, of course. I mean, listen, and this is one of the things that I didn't quite get as a kid, but, watching this done, I'm like, oh, well, he is going to exercise his husbandly duty. Anyone is going to think of that, if you're in a marriage of convenience or basically a business relationship, the idea is, well, no, I'm not going to exercise my husband. I love the conversation where she's like, anything else? She's like, are you suggesting that I would exercise my husbandly prerogative? And she's like, well, yeah, that's exactly what. He's like, well, I give you my word as a gentleman, and she's like, well, that's not worth that much, but I guess it's the best I can get. and so when she sees that and she goes after him, it's like, but you would also expect that from Russell Donovan based on what we've been shown. He's softened to these kids. This is a journey this man takes. He's softened to these kids, and he's made some, some decisions to kind of lighten up. But yeah, he's still shady enough that you're like, oh, he's wanting to enjoy the fruits of that brass bed's labor, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and right before all of that, she was kind of looking at him like, huh, there's fresh meat in this town. I could get myself some Incredible Hulk. And the fact that I think he said he didn't want to exercise his husbandly rights, I think that set her off in the wrong way.
Well, yeah.
And then he goes to buy the bed, and she's getting all these mixed signals, and all of a sudden this character who was very centered and grounded, now she just flips, which wouldn't have happened before they got married. And one of my favorite lines in the film is when someone asks Harry Morgan,
What happened with them two?
They got married.
Yeah. That was funny.
That was funny, yeah.
One of the best lines in the movie. Now, this film, I think a lot of the comedy bits still hold up. So what bits or lines of dialogue do you two think still stand up after 40 years?
Oh, I don't know. I was pretty much the whole time going cheesy, cheesy, cheesy. But I was still laughing, but I was just like cheesy.
Oh, come on. The latter bit?
Oh my God. That was so long.
But the best part about the latter bit was the dog. Because he's just looking at them and then he just puts his head down.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, what good is that dog?
Yeah. That dog ain't no good.
It's definitely still funny, and it does hold up. I think that people would think that it was funny. I just the whole time, I don't know. I think it's because I've been watching Fuller House and I've been engulfed in the cheesy that everything to me right now is like, okay.
The moment that I love with the latter bit is when Conway steps over the bed and he's bringing it around, and if you're looking at the screen, the door, he needs to go to your left. Mm-hmm. And he swings around to the right and just goes all the way back around the bed. And it's just
this is when they're trying to steal the ladder off of the fire truck so they can climb up the side of the bank.
Right. And he ends up on the other side he ends up right back where he was at the bed again. And it's like, and then I'm sitting there thinking, well, just turn around and go the other way. You can go straight out then. You just swung around. But I love his look of just surprise and amazement and just confusion of how did I get back here? Just this weird. And then of course as it just goes on, it gets worse and worse. It's just a funny, those kind of bits to me where the idiots just can't get it together are always some, the physical comedy aspect of it, just some of my favorite stuff.
Oh, the choreography of that scene was just amazing. And there's just no way they could have storyboarded or even rehearsed that. It was one of these, we're going to just call action. You guys just do your thing.
You think?
Yes. Because it was just borderline ridiculous.
That's true.
And yet the fireman sleeping right in the middle of all this, he never wakes up.
Nope.
Great stuff.
So that comedy bit stood up for you guys?
For me, it did. Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite favorite bits of comedy. And of course, when he comes up the hill and he kicks the fire out, and he's like, "There's a posse coming," and they get down there and he's like, "Well, we can either run for it or we can go out and blaze of glory." And Tim Conway like, "Now, what do you mean by blaze of glory?" What do you? And it's just like, and then they get all serious and sentimental. He's like, "I know I give you a hard time, but when we get up to that great expanse in the sky, I'm going to spread my blanket right out next to yours." And then the kids,
so weird.
And then the kids show up, and it's like, this was the posse. It's just those great moments, because you knew it was the kids because they were on their way to the mine. But just their exchanges and stuff. All of their exchanges were great. There was some great takes from Bill Bixby. Mm-hmm. When he walks during the ladder bit, when he walks by, they're just kind of lean on the ladder, and he kind of does the double take, or with the bucket situation, which is a precursor to me, when he's like, "I'll give you the hoot owl, hoo hoo, and I'll back with the whippoorwill."
This is going to be easier than robbing a bird's nest. Right. Now you get up on that roof and wait. I'll give you a hoot owl call when he comes.
Ooh, ooh. That's good. I'll tell you what. I'll answer with a whippoorwill.
And that's a precursor to the old Three Amigos bit.
Ah! Whippoorwill! Whippoorwill! Look up here! Look up here! Look up here!
Look up here!
That reminded me of Home Alone. Like so much.
It was very cartoony.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to that scene you talked about when the two, Tim Conway and
Theo and Amos.
Yeah, Theo and Amos are thinking that it's going to be
the
their last
posse
day.
that's coming right up to them.
Yeah.
And you know what? Let's go ahead and roll this clip.
You know something, Theodore? This could be the end of the trail for us.
Looks that way, Amos. You know something? You and me have been through a lot together. And although I climbed your hump once in a while, I just couldn't ask for a better partner. We meet again in that big round up in the sky sometime. I'm going to spread my blanket side of yours just the same as always.
Took us like 3 times to get through this bit.
Yeah.
He says, "You and me have been through a lot together. And although I've climbed your hump every once in a while, I just couldn't have asked for a better partner. When we meet up in the sky, I'm going to spread my blank side of yours just like always." What? What?
Did he really say that?
Yes.
What he means is, look, they're cowboys. They're talking about sleeping out under the open stars, and
yeah,
you spread your blanket right next to each other. It's like I'll be glad to share a space in heaven with you, is what he's saying.
Although,
but it took us a couple of times to realize he was saying blanket.
Oh, you thought he said blank?
Yeah, I'm gonna spread my blank side of yours, just like always. What?
What?
I guess.
Okay, I realize this is probably a PG show, but I so don't know what y'all are talking about right now.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Well, you know what?
Off air,
Google it.
Explain it to me, because no, I don't. What do I Google? I don't understand what Richard's saying. I don't know.
Well, he precedes us all by saying, "And although I've climbed your hump every once in a while."
What does that mean?
Still, I'm sorry, my brain's not there. I'm not there.
It means he jumped down his throat. He crawled on.
That's not the way it came across.
It means Brokeback Mountain.
No, it's not a Brokeback Mountain thing.
Okay.
I don't know.
He's saying every time I crawled. Listen, guys, I'm telling you, it's a Southerner.
Okay.
These are terms that you got to understand, and maybe that's why I understood it so well. He's saying, I crawled down your back. I crawled up your back. I gave you a hard time. I jumped down your throat. I was mean to you. I was always.
Oh
yeah. See, I got
afterwards, we see what it means, and we understood it once we saw it 4 or 5 times. But initially, it just stuck out at us as a line that does not belong in a G-rated Disney film.
No, see, I totally understood what they were trying to say, but I kind of grew up on a ranch, so.
I grew up in the big city of Boston, so this meant something totally different to me.
You guys are so grown up.
I know. Well, come on, later.
Hey, no need for name calling.
But later, Amos lights a cigarette on Theodore's butt.
But let's talk about that. Like, not even the lighting cigarette, not the cigarette part, but the fact
go ahead, Teresa.
There's cigarettes and there's alcohol openly. This was the period of time where Disney had cigarettes and alcohol just like waving around in their kids' movies.
But it's also a Western.
Right, yeah,
That's
so
true.
you have to.
I understand, but we've talked about this before, Steve. Where even in the animated films, it was maybe up until where were we in about in the 80s when they finally stopped sort of using all that kind of stuff really openly, because in an Oliver and Company, Fagin still had all the alcohol and the smoking and all that. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you had pulled out a thing of Dasani water and was chewing Hubba Bubba, it just wouldn't have been the same thing.
Hubba Bubba.
Now, one of the funniest lines to me that I laughed out loud and we had to pause it because I love this is when Celia says,
When Mr. Stockley gets mad, he uses words I never heard before.
Aww.
Teresa, Google that.
I understood that one.
I just like the matter of fact MASH guy saying,
Your rear end's on fire, Theodore.
He just walks by.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's on fire.
Which is a soundbite we had to use in the intro to Step in Time.
Yep.
Because it was one of those lines that everyone knew immediately.
Except for me, apparently, until I saw
Hey,
this movie.
Steve, have you noticed how they like to use butt stuff a lot? So there's like, your butt's on fire.
Yeah.
What was the one from The Rescuers? Look what they did to my pants.
What they did to my pants, yeah. Watch
The
out.
little girl from this reminds me of Penny.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, or any of those little children from these different and various and sundry movies. Yeah, she definitely does. I was thinking the same thing when we were watching. I'm like, well, that's the Penny of this movie.
Mm.
And you know, I mean, I know we're kind of
we're jumping, don't worry.
Jump off notes here. How successful was this movie?
Well, it made $36 million total.
It was the most successful Disney movie of the 70s.
Wow.
Now, on the domestic box office charts, it is just a few slots down from The Force Awakens, whereas The Force Awakens is number one. The Apple Dumpling Gang sits at 2026.
It's really surprising to me then that the little girl, Stacy Manning, never really acted again. You know?
Yeah.
That's just really strange, you know, because you would have thought if it was the most successful movie of the 70s, they would have been like, just like any of these studios do. Oh, well, they're going to love this kid in this then, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but it also has a lot to do with the parents too, because a lot of parents of that age, of that era, would see these kids in these big films and they didn't want their kids to be sucked up into the Hollywood grind, or they didn't want all the fame to go to their heads, and they couldn't relate with the kids at school. And it just became a whole mess, and we saw a lot of that during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So some parents would pull their kids out of show business. As a side tangent, Steve, I'm sure you've seen The Bad News Bears.
Yes.
So have I.
Oh?
Okay, and Teresa. Now
I love The Bad News
That
Bears.
film was so huge back in 1976.
Wait, you showed me this movie.
With Walter Matthau, yeah. It was so big that a lot of those parents did not want all that fame to go to their heads. They wanted them to go to school as normal kids, and they just wanted them to grow up as normal people. Some of the kids did go into the sequels, but I had a friend who was friends with a lot of those kids because they all grew up in Los Angeles, and they said, oh yeah, that film was just so big that no matter where they go, they would always be barraged by people, and it would freak these kids out.
Interesting.
So maybe that's why they pull these kids out of these films. And when I was a kid, I thought every little blonde girl was Celia. I remember going to my sister and I just being anywhere and everywhere, and I said, "That's the girl from the Apple Dumpling Gang. That's her." And she's like, "Rich, that girl over there's 36 years old. It couldn't be her, even though she's got blonde hair." So anyone who had blonde hair, I would think it was her.
Did you have a crush on
Yes,
Celia?
I did. Yes, I did.
Aww.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I know. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I was 6, so it was.
Yeah.
It was fine.
It made sense.
Yes.
Still after the youngins, even then.
Well, what's interesting, and you guys talked about the Apple Dumpling Gang rides again, but y'all know there was a TV show, correct?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there was 2 TV shows. Well, there was a TV movie called Tales of the Apple Dumpling Gang in 1982 with Ed Begley Jr. And then came the 1983 series Gunshy.
Yep.
With a completely different cast, including Barry Van Dyke. And I do remember seeing this show as a kid, and after the first like 3 minutes, I was out.
Oh.
For the same reason, I didn't really care for the Apple Dumpling Gang rides again.
Because Celia wasn't in it.
Well, yes.
Yeah, we've gotten down to the bulk of it, Sarah.
Yep.
Basically, it's about Celia.
I think so. I think we figured this out. Same as Star Wars is all about Han for me. Apple Dumpling Gang is all about Celia.
That's why I wanted to do this film. All right, good night, y'all. Thanks.
Well, let me ask you this seriously. Were the kids what you gravitated to when you watched this movie?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because
for me, yes,
they were in it more than Tim Conway and Don Knotts. So I really gravitated toward these kids, and I went in there for the bumbling fools, but I really clung on to the kids.
Teresa, what about you?
I wanted more story with the kids and with Donovan and what was going on there, as opposed and not as much of the whole Don Knotts, Tim Conway thing. Not because I didn't think they were funny, because I do, but I was more interested in the story of what was going on with the kids.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, but as an adult, when I watch films now where kids are just doing really stupid things, like going off and causing all this trouble, now their parents, like in every other Disney film, their parents are dead, which is why they're shipped from Boston to the West Coast. And you would think that now they have a legal guardian, and clearly Celia is in love with Mr. Donovan.
Right.
And she wants to stay with him, but yet why these kids causing so much trouble when kids of that nature who just they want their place, they want a home, they tend to be a little bit more well-mannered. But it's a movie. You've got to have all those fun action adventure scenes, so I can understand that.
They weren't trying to cause trouble, though. That's the thing, is that it wasn't on purpose. They weren't purposely doing things to get attention or to get people to pay attention to them. It was completely accidental every single time. And you could read it on their faces. They were like, oops.
Yeah, but even when Mr. Donovan said, hey, you kids wait outside the saloon while I go inside and gamble away your lives. You guys wait right here. 3 minutes later, they were already ruining the town, including that big mirror.
Would you really just sit there? Because I wouldn't. I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna go explore some stuff.
Yeah, I think as a kid, if I saw someone who was taking care of me, I know that every single time he had a chance to get rid of them, he was trying to pawn them off to every single neighbor. But they were with him, and I think they could have been a little bit more well behaved.
Yeah, just give me an iPad and I can sit down for an
Yeah,
hour.
But then again, I know.
Here's the thing: you're not a teacher. See, kids don't do that.
Oh.
You tell kids to sit there and not do something, and they're gonna go and do. They're gonna go explore.
But I work with kids. I know how they think.
Yeah, most kids don't do that. They're not gonna. Okay, I'll sit here and wait.
Yeah, but if a kid, their whole lives were just turned upside down because of their parents, so they never really said how they died. But it's Disney, so you know they did. Probably from a hunter in the woods.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's the
point. That's why they're not just going to sit there. They're
But
going to
also-
okay.
But also, you got to think of this being the time that it was. They've come clear across the country, because if they were in Boston, Donovan is headed east to New Orleans. So they're going out. You know, I don't know. You think maybe California, since it's the gold rush.
Right.
So you're talking about these kids who have gone clear across the country, you know, having days, weeks to kind of, you know, not to mention whatever they went through in town. They've processed all this. Now it's like, we've got to figure out our place. We got to figure out stuff. And they're kids. And so they're just, you know, and everything they get into, they kind of get into accidentally. The biggest offense to me was when Celia just opens the chicken coop.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, outside of that, it's just like, well, these are kids. They're exploring all the land around them, you know, so they end up playing in a mine car, which, you know, kids do. And, you know, and so it to me, I'm just thinking the whole time, I'm like, well, this is Donovan's fault. Who leaves 3 kids out on the streets while you go gamble your life away?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the kids did say that they wanted to cause trouble with everyone they came across with, that Mr. Donovan was trying to pawn the kids off to, just so the neighbors didn't want the kids.
When did they say that?
There was one part I knew you were gonna say that that they did allude to that.
Okay.
Which is why Celia goes into the chicken coop and they always cause so many problems.
But they weren't trying to cause. I don't remember them saying they were trying to cause trouble for that reason.
Because I thought, that's pretty ingenious for them to do that.
I didn't think it was not until they found the gold, because they didn't necessarily. Celia liked Donovan from the get-go.
Yeah.
Clovis did not.
No,
Yeah, Clovis had issues.
Clovis just don't like being touched.
Yeah, he had some issues. I don't want to even get into that.
I love the first time he tells him that, he's like, well, Clovis don't like being touched, and the response is, don't he? Like
yeah, and Clovis kicks Bill Bixby in the shins, and Bill Bixby acts like he was just knifed right in the gut. He buckles over and
getting
screams.
Kicked in the shin hurts a lot.
I get kicked in the shins almost daily.
That's why we wear shin guards when we're out playing soccer.
Doesn't hurt like that.
Can we talk about really quickly the acting of one William Bill Bixby?
Yeah.
This guy is, to me, and now listen, I have a very special place in my heart for Bill Bixby. He is one of the very few celebrities that I literally mourned at his passing. This guy, everything I've ever seen him in, from My Favorite Martian right on through Incredible Hulk, his story on that he did on Twilight Zone, before My Favorite Martian, Courtship of Eddie's Father,
greatest theme song of all time.
Yeah, The Magician. He has this style of acting that is almost, I'm not even going to say almost, it is overacting. He overacts. And it's just, and I don't know if it was the time period, because when I watched The Incredible Hulk, I think the same thing. And then I watched The Incredible Hulk Returns, or like the Trial of the Incredible Hulk and the Death of the Incredible Hulk. He directed some of those, and it's like everyone else is overacting. And I'm like, this is how he was. This is what he did. This is who he was. He was an overactor. And I just absolutely am riveted by him, though, every time he's on screen. And his reactions to pain are some of the greatest, most iconic reactions to pain for me in my life. That I'm like, it's just like I say, when Clovis kicks him in the shin, I expected him to open his eyes very wide and they be whited out. and we start to hear the high-pitched noise and his shirt starts to rip and he turns to Lou Ferrigno. Just like, it's so much that. It's just, his acting is something to behold.
Well, Bill Bixby as an actor, as a Hollywood icon, gets put up there with people like Michael Landon and Henry Winkler and Steve Carell, people who are just known for being extremely nice and genuine in the film business. In fact, I was working on a movie the day in '93 that Bill Bixby died. The film actually shut down for the day.
Wow.
People were just so saddened by the news, because everyone had their stories of either the Courtship of Eddie's Father, which was huge with a lot of people of that age, the Hulk, the Magician, and people who had worked with him. These grips, these big hulking guys who were grips, I could see the tears coming down their eyes. This guy was just so loved. And I'm just so amazed that I forgot that he was in this movie. When we saw the credits, like, Bill Bixby's in this?
Well, I know we were all talking about who we gravitated toward in this film. A lot of you gravitated toward the kids. Well, I kind of gravitated toward Bill Bixby and Dusty. Just, I'm always about the romance, the shipping. So yeah.
Magnolia.
That was her name.
He calls her Magnolia.
Magnolia.
And Donovan looks at her and says, Magnolia?
No, it's Dusty. Even though Dusty wasn't that pretty. Like, I was kind of mourning the fact that she was never in a dress or never had makeup on and her hair was all short. Because me as a little girl, like, I always wanted to watch movies with, pretty people like Mary Poppins. or things like that. So
Well, that scene where she's looking at the bed very longingly because she's been one of these people, one of these girls who's had to work probably since she could walk, and she's never had any pretty things. I think hence no makeup and looking the way she very very rugged. And here she was looking at something very pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like PayPaling her the money.
That's what I call solid comfort.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
Now, let's switch topics here and ask a question we always ask on Step in Time. If this were to be remade today, the Apple Dumpling Gang, God help us, and you two had to cast Don Knotts and Tim Conway's roles, who would you choose?
Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Okay, I can almost
Jimmy
see
Fallon and Will Ferrell. I don't know. I'm just like the people. I'm thinking of people who
that. Oh,
work
you're not
in
even
pairs.
trying.
I'm thinking of people who work in pairs.
All right, Steve, what do you think?
I mean, I thought the same thing too when I first saw this question. Thinking about people who work in pairs, and I'd go to Seth Rogen and James Franco.
Oh yeah, nice.
Or like if you're going to do Will Ferrell, then it's got to be Will Ferrell and
John C. Reilly.
Thank you, John C. Reilly, the Guardians.
Oh.
Yeah, I think. In fact, I think if you're going to do the Apple Dumpling Gang in 2016, it's got to be Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly in those roles.
Yeah,
That would be
I can
funny.
see that. I would tend to want to go with Key and Peele.
Oh yeah,
I think they would be just hilarious. They would bring a whole new spin, whole new edge to it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I just can't help thinking of, Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern. Although they'd be a little too old for that now.
I think they're even too old for Home Alone now.
Yeah. It just so reminded me of Home Alone, those latter scenes and everything.
Tina Fey and Amy Poehler.
Let's do the Ghostbusters remake.
there we go. Now we're talking.
Yeah, that'd be a whole different spin.
Melissa McCarthy. Not
Yes.
Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah.
You want Melissa McCarthy?
Yeah, Melissa McCarthy and Kristen
And
Wiig.
Sandra Bullock. No, Sandra Bullock would be like the woman who's like the Bill Bixby role, who's like so into her career, she can't take care of these kids.
Well, I don't think Melissa McCarthy works well in duos because she just takes over every scene that she's in that you wouldn't even notice the other one is there.
But see, no, I think Kristen Wiig can hang with her.
Huh.
So it's kind of like John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd.
Right.
When you get them on stage, you're just looking at John Belushi because he's just ping-ponging all over the stage.
Well, see, Kristen Wiig would play the Don Knotts role, who in that, though they were both idiots, he was still more the straight man.
Right. Right.
In that comedic duo. And Melissa McCarthy would be the Tim Conway. Let's write this script right now, guys.
All right.
Out there. That would be amazing.
Okay, and so taking over the role of Bill Bixby would be Mark Ruffalo.
No, I like the whole gender flipping thing.
Yeah.
Sarah said Sandra Bullock. I think that'd be fantastic.
That'd be fun.
I like that.
Yeah.
Then put and then in the Dusty role, you go with then you might go with the Mark Ruffalo in the Dusty role.
Yeah, definitely. Like someone who's not your typical heartthrob.
Right.
Who's
Someone
work
who
a
can
day.
just blend into the scenes.
Yeah, so definitely like Mark Ruffalo.
Which now I want to just say, Susan Clark is a stunning lady.
Mm-hmm.
She was a stunning lady. She actually would go on to one of her biggest claims of fame, which she would play the mother in Webster.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I knew that name and face. But without her being made up, I just couldn't see it.
So she's Dusty, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But she was also, for the male contingent, who was the right age at the right time. She played Cherry Forever in Porky's.
Mm-hmm.
What's Porky's?
Oh my gosh, you're so precious.
Oh, poor Sarah.
We
Sarah,
have a long night ahead of us.
You're so precious.
Is that TV? Is this a
No,
movie?
No,
It's a movie.
That's we'll talk.
Okay.
Well, why don't you and Teresa get together and Google some stuff tonight?
No, I know this. I've seen.
Yeah, Porky's was American Pie before American Pie.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right, I can kind of know where that's going.
Well, yeah, bless your heart. You're so precious.
Well, thank you. I'll take it, I guess. Well, did you guys have any last thoughts before we wrap up this episode of Step in Time?
Oh, geez. Teresa?
I have lots of thoughts specifically about this.
Not Porky's.
No, I wasn't. I was actually going to send Sarah the link for the trailer for Porky.
Oh, boy.
Please do. And Sarah, please watch it.
Baby steps, okay? Baby steps.
Well, that's why trailer first. Trailer first.
Trailer first.
First
okay.
needs to have the talk.
The talk. You do know I'm married, right?
Well, it goes back to 1982 and where our sensibilities were back then.
Okay.
You were only 1 year old.
I was. I just won.
I was not born.
It's true. Teresa wasn't born.
Which is what I find funny about this. Sarah's a few years older than me, but I've seen a lot of things I don't think she has.
It's true. It's true. I was one of those who, like, I found my movies that I liked. I stuck with them. I just watched them over and over
Sarah
and over.
just read as a kid.
Yeah,
she didn't
too.
watch Porky's. God love her.
I did the same thing, Sarah, only the movies I found that I liked were Star Wars.
Yeah, I did that one summer, like over and over and over again.
And pretty much it was Star Wars and the Apple Dumpling Gang.
We didn't talk about Slim Pickens, guys.
Oh, Slim Pickens. Let's get into Slim Pickens.
Yeah, as the as the Stillwell guy, the head of the Stillwell gang.
I love the fact that they really broadened out Amos and Theodore's characters because they belonged to Slim Pickens' gang once upon a time. And they were ousted because Theodore shot Slim Pickens in the leg. So that's why you see him with a leg brace, and that's what calls him out later on.
This guy was a staple of so many different things. He was. If you didn't recognize, if you didn't know his name, you knew him from all kinds of stuff. You know, particularly shows like Gunsmoke and man, he was one of those he wasn't, I don't know if you'd call him a character actor, but he just showed up everywhere. Particularly, I always associate him with Westerns and that sort of thing.
Well, the man was a real cowboy. He
was
a true to life cowboy, yeah. Turned actor, kind of like Gene Autry.
Oh.
And as a kid, I never knew Slim Pickens was an actor. I thought it was just a turn of phrase.
Right. Well, it is that as well. I didn't realize he had been a cowboy before he was a cowboy turned actor. I guess I didn't know that, but a lot of people know him from his role in Blazing Saddles, another movie that Sarah has not seen.
One of the most offensive movies in the world.
Yeah, I think I'm in the minority here. I'm the only one who thinks that is not a funny movie.
No, well, you're not. You're not. I don't think it's a funny movie. However, if you ask my husband, he loves that movie. He tries to get me to watch it all the time. I'm like, nope.
Well, the thing about Blazing Saddles is it's written to be offensive. To point out because what it does is it's pointing out the stupidity of racism and stuff. And so, and that's what it's, it's meant to be over the top with some of the offenses and everything. But Slim Pickens is in that, and probably pretty well known for that, as well as Dr. Strangelove.
Who is he in Blazing Saddles?
He was one of the townspeople there. Taggart. He was Taggart in Blazing Saddles, which was Harvey, what's his face's like assistant dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But anyhow, yeah, so it was, really when you think about it, with Don Knotts, Tim Conway, Slim Pickens for crying out loud, Harry Morgan, you're talking about, I don't know, tour de force may be a little overstating it, but you're talking about such a solid cast for the time.
Oh, big time.
75. So, and I don't know who played the banker guy, but the banker, one of the things that stuck with me for years and years from this movie was the banker telling them that dynamite's old and it's sweaty. and that just always stuck with me because as a kid, I'm like, what does he mean sweaty? How does dynamite sweat? Yeah. And then years later, I'd be watching Lost and they would come across a ship full of old dynamite and it would just randomly blow up. And I'm like, old and sweaty. That dynamite's old and sweaty, guys.
Even though it's a chemical that ignites
Lights?
dynamite. I'm not sure how the sweating of a piece
don't
of
know.
stick of dynamite, but it's
But-
one of those things. Let's just move the plot forward.
Right. But Richard, you thought when you saw that banker guy, he looked like Mr. Banks from Mary Poppins.
Yes. And I want to say...
Is it through the... No.
He's John McGipper. is his name.
Oh.
Leonard Sharp, Leonard the banker. I thought that, I could have sworn that was Mr. Banks. It looks, he had the same, the height, the same facial
He
features.
kind of had a very similar
no.
face, but it wasn't the same.
No.
And he had a talking umbrella.
He did
It-
not.
See, I
It all
don't
added
see
up.
that at all.
He had similar jowls.
Now
Yeah,
I
'cause he
know
says-
where I've seen the banker dude before.
Where's that?
He was on the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
He's another accomplished actor. When you roll down through his IMDb, I mean, all the way from the 50s up until this time. And apparently he passed not long after this movie at age 60.
Oh, wow.
Oh, poor Mr. Banks.
It's not Mr. Banks.
Mr. Banks.
It's not Mr. Banks.
Now, one thing I really want to touch on, and Sarah, you pointed this out when we were watching it. The kids find this huge chunk,
Oh my
this
God.
asteroid chunk of gold.
No. Okay.
It's
So
like,
the earthquake happens, right?
Yeah, so
And-
the kids are in the mine.
Yep. The kids are in the mine. The earthquake happens. They look over, and here is this lovely piece
Of spray painted rock.
spray painted rock that's just sitting there, this big chunk. And I burst out laughing, you guys. I burst out. I was like, there is no way that's actual gold. That was my favorite thing.
And
No, Sarah, it's through the magic of movies. It's
and when they brought it to the bank, it was said that the thing had a street value of like $85,000.
Yeah.
$85,000 in 1878? That's a lot of money.
That's
Well,
like $5 quadrillion.
Yeah.
They said at one point it was 300 pounds.
Yeah. And
So,
But
Yeah,
how
that's-
many ounces are in a
Let's see, gold is $15 an ounce. How many ounces in a pound?
I was told there'd be no math.
Now, one comment that one of our listeners, Bill Medea, had said, he had one of the lines he had pointed out was when Don Knotts says to Tim Conway,
It's a piece of cake.
You mean it ain't gold?
Of course it's gold, stupid.
it's one of those lines that it looks like it was so well delivered that it had to be improv. And I'm sure
Probably.
they just let the cameras roll on these two guys.
yeah, I'm
If
sure.
the director was smart, it would have just let these two guys do whatever they wanted to do. Hence that scene when they're trying to steal the ladder to climb on top of the bank to steal the gold. And then in the end, when the bank does blow up because someone drops the dynamite, you see that the inside of the bank, which is now like a 5x5 room, whereas before when they're in the bank, it's this huge bank.
The magic of movies.
The magic of movies was definitely happening at the end when they're in the water. Because you could definitely, it's like, oh, I've seen those trees before. Oh, same trees, different angle. Water pool.
So, and when they
water
go,
pool, waves.
when they would hit some big stuff, you could tell that the people on the platform were dummies.
Oh yeah, yeah. A lot of the stunts were kids were dummies.
Well, the mine train stunt, that
Yeah.
was so funny.
Well, I just don't know why they didn't CGI the kids back in there.
Well, that's why they would duck down.
Yeah, there you go.
We gotta duck down so that they could do a wide shot and only have a couple of hats sticking up.
in those awesome blue screen shots. But I do recall as a kid loving that whole sequence when the mine car is running through the woods and the kids are just having the greatest time. I'd get on my bike and I would just go flying down the street, just picturing
Aw.
myself with Celia right beside me in the mine cart.
I'm sure you did.
That was a few years ago, okay? That was...
You guys have some things to talk about.
Yeah,
You guys got to work some stuff out. I just, Richard, it blows my mind how much you love this movie as a kid.
Oh, it had everything. Just with the action and the adventure. I think the kids going off just finding their own adventures. I know as an adult I'd see it one way, but as a kid, I just love the fact that these kids were just in everything, and every kid wants to do that. And I was just so envious that these kids were on a Minecraft, on a
mine train?
Mine train and
Minecraft. That wasn't around then.
they're flying down a mine train. They're busting through mirrors. They're they're busting through this big orchestra, Dick Van Dyke looking thing that.
Oh yeah,
the thing that he was strapped on his back.
Symposium thing, a melodeon, something like that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I just loved everything about this movie, and as a kid, when you see a movie like that, and later on Star Wars, all you ever wanted to do was play that, and that minecar scene just had such a big impact on me.
Nice.
So that was my favorite movie, that favorite moment, and even when we saw that a couple nights ago, I can remember all those feelings I had when seeing that scene.
That's always fun. I love watching movies you haven't seen like in forever.
Oh yeah, just these memories start rushing back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
All right, guys. Did you have anything else?
What was the name of the stew that Dusty brought over?
Oh.
Root leaf?
No, it was some kind of like.
It was like
Anyhow, yeah. I just the thing, whatever he was cooking before she brings the stew,
Salt beef, salt pork, or something like that.
Salt pork. Yeah, I'm like, I was always like, what is that? And I never asked. I don't know why I never asked, but I was just like, what is salt pork? Which I guess is basically like fatback.
Yeah,
that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing as a butt, Steve?
No, it's no.
The rumpus roast?
Don't touch the butt.
No, it's a totally different situation. Well, here we go. We're back to the butts now. Doing the butt.
Your rear end's on fire, Theodore.
Just so matter of factly.
I know. I love it.
Well, Harry Morgan was just fantastic anyway. He had that deadpan delivery.
Yeah.
Down. Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, the slapstick, not just the the spoken comedy, but the slapstick between these two was just hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
When one would turn to the other one, and they would do almost like this dog chasing its tail thing, as they couldn't find each other because they were both moving in tandem around each other, and they couldn't find one another. Did I just over-explain that?
No, you're with me.
Thank you, Steve. So I don't think we'll ever see behind-the-scenes footage on this, but I would
outtakes.
That would be just priceless to see how these two would work.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up this episode of Step in Time, remembering Disney's matinee movies. And can you guys tell everyone where to find you?
Teresa,
Sure.
tell people where they can find us.
Okay. You can, if you want to contact us via email to comment on anything we had to say here today, you can email us. It's vaulttalk@gmail.com. Otherwise, we're on Facebook. Just look for Disney Vault Talk, and we're on Twitter at Disney Vault Talk.
And for all the shows that Disney Vault Talk is part of the Golaverse, which is the Geek Out Loud universe of podcasts, you can head over to geekoutpodcast.com and find not only our episodes, but also all kinds of other stuff there. And, of course, just on iTunes as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And that wraps up this episode of Step in Time, remembering Disney's matinee movies, where we just took a fun look back at the Apple Dumpling Gang. One of Richard's favorite movies with one of his favorite crushes, I'm learning.
Let's move on. And we're so glad that we could share it with you too, because this movie really meant so much to me as a kid, and it was just so much fun going over it with you guys. So thank you very much for indulging.
Well, thank you guys for having us.
Of course. All right, everyone. Well, you can find us on Twitter at SkywalkingPod. On Facebook, we are Skywalking Through Neverland. And you can always email us to share@skywalkingthroughneverland.com. So, and you know what? We are the Apple Dumpling Gang. Here, where's the Apple Dumpling Gang thing?
What?
Okay, so the Apple Dumpling Gang song goes, well, they saddled up in Boston, still wet behind the ears. That's you, Richard.
There you go.
That's from Boston, right? And they made their way across the wild frontier. Teresa, you just traveled, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's
So
like the
that's
song
Teresa.
is speaking to us.
As they sought their fame and fortune, their legend up and sprang.
And they soon became everyone. The Apple Dumpling Gang.
Thank you. Yay.
We didn't rehearse that a bit.
For Step in Time, this is Sarah.
This is Richard. Now it's you guys.
That's why you put it in purple.
Sorry.
Here, I'll try it again.
Rewind.
All right. For Step in Time, this is Sarah.
This is Richard.
And this is Teresa.
Wait a minute. Let's do it again.
Okay.
Who's going first?
You just do it. Do it how we normally do it. You do it.
Okay.
All right. For Step in Time, this is Sarah.
This is Richard.
This is Steve.
And this is Teresa.
And we'll see y'all next time when we step in time with another favorite Disney matinee movie.
End scene.
As they sought their fame and fortune,